Many know about slavery, but few discuss paper genocide. We did not all come from Africa, and most of us have Aboriginal roots that were stripped away due to reclassification and miseducation. As a native Black American and a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation, I understand the importance of tracing your lineage. If you want to learn how to trace your genealogy and apply for tribal citizenship, go to nativeblackancestry.com to schedule a consultation.
They don't want you to remember this. You not no slave, you indigenous. Fuck how they painted them Indians. You went to war with the French and the British, man. Quite frankly, you was kings, Merovingians. They took the women and men, made them prisoners, raised up the children to worship their images, set up a lab to the genes and they mixed them, and this shit get way deeper than your pigment.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are live on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. Shout out to everybody tuning in, no matter what platform you're viewing from. Smash the like button on the way in. Likes are free after all. If you're watching on TikTok, make sure to give me a follow. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe and select all when it comes to the notifications so you stay tuned in. I got a couple hours until I got to catch a flight to the West Coast, but I said, you know what? Let me open myself up to the public, see if anybody wants to debate me on the origins of Black America. A lot of people try to dictate this interesting African heritage upon us with no genealogical evidence at all. So I'm just wondering if anybody out there can cite a source. A lot of these people don't know what sources are. I've learned that the hard way. You think citing a source is a very, very easy thing to do, but they surprise me, guys. They surprise me. I'm not really going to be acknowledging the trolls in the chat tonight. This is a live call-in show, so if you want to debate me, you can click the link, call in. We're going to let you get it all off your chest. You have permission to speak freely. Or if you have any general questions about genealogy, tribal citizenship, anything in between, I am your resident expert. Go ahead and ask away. And tonight is a special night. I just launched my new book, Reclassified, 5 Centuries of Paper Genocide, How Race Was Used to Erase Native Black Americans, 1492 to 2025. Make sure to check it out. You can get your copy at the website nativeblackancestry.com. Just click on the tab that says Reclassified, New Book, and that'll take you straight to the landing page. But you know what? You know what I want to do? I said earlier that for the folks watching on TikTok, I would give you guys the ability to vote on a chapter, right? So check this out. Let me bring the table of contents up for my new book. And for the folks on TikTok, you're going to be able to vote. And I'm going to give you some free game. Let me know which chapter you want me to read through real quick, just so you can get a preview of the book, just so you can see how heavy we're coming with the receipts. Let me see. Let me make it so you guys can see it clearly. All right, now you guys can see it over there on TikTok, as well as YouTube. All right, so as far as the table of contents, chapter 1 is the crime you were never meant to see. So if you want me to read through chapter 1, go ahead and vote number 1 in the chat. Chapter 2 is 1492 to 1600, the first misclassification. Chapter 3 is 1600 to 1700, the Indian slave trade era. And guys, as you can see, I made this in chronological order. So this is very easy to track. We're going to take it through the centuries chronologically and show you how paper genocide was implemented, reinforced, made gospel. Let's talk about it. Chapter 4, 1700 to 1800, the age of colonial record keepers. Chapter 5, 1800 to 1880, removal, reclassification, and federal control. Chapter 6, 1880 to 1910, the Green Peach War and the Dawes Era. Chapter 7, 1910 to 1950, the Eugenics and Racial Integrity Regime. Chapter 8, 1950 to modern day, academia and the new paper genocide. And chapter 9, restoring what was taken. Guys, go ahead and put some numbers in the chat. Whichever one you find interesting, whichever period you really want to be enlightened on as far as the racial reclassification that our ancestors persevered through. I mean, go ahead and just vote. Put a number in the chat. We'll see what you guys are saying. And we'll get straight on into it. And as always, if any of you guys need professional guidance with genealogy research, check out the website nativeblackancestry.com. I built it out with tons of resources. And you even have the ability to schedule a one-on-one consultation with me where I teach the 3-step process that me and my family use to trace our heritage and get tribal citizenship with the Muskogee Creek Nation. But let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. Let me see what the vote's turning out to be. All right, I see a vote for number 1. Oh, Derek says you have an echo on YouTube, Mike. I think I just fixed the echo. Thank you for letting me know, Derek. Sorry for the YouTube audience. Had to deal with that for the first 5 minutes. All right, let me see. What are you guys voting on TikTok? I see number 1. I see 4 several times. I see a chapter 2, a couple 2, 6 or 9, couple 9s. So 4 has been artificially inflated. Our girl Bam voted a few times. Let me see. Chapter 2. That's also Michael voting a couple times. We got 2 for 9. We got 2 for 9. We got 2 for 1. Okay, guys, we got a tiebreaker. Go ahead and end the tiebreaker. Either put 9 or put 1 in the chat. Shout out to Dollars and Cents. Yeah, we're just voting on TikTok to see which chapter I'm going to read through in my new book that I just launched tonight. You guys can go cop that at nativeblackancestry.com. Just click on the tab that says new book, reclassified. Okay, I see another vote for 9. I'm seeing a lot of 9s. Okay, you guys want me to read through number 9? Not a problem. I will definitely read through chapter 9 with you all, and then we'll see if we got any live callers that want to challenge me, debate me, or anybody who just has any general questions. You know, I make myself available to the public. But the folks on TikTok said they want to read through number 9. Interesting. I'm kind of upset that you guys chose number 9, honestly, because number 9 is kind of like the conclusion, right? That's like the conclusion chapter. That's like putting a nice little cherry on the top. Whereas when we talk about the actual heavy-handed receipts, I mean, that's going to be in the chapters that have date ranges, you know, 1880, 1910, 1950. But hey, wait, I'm seeing 1 now. A lot of people are saying 1. Okay, you guys switch around on me a little bit. Let's go ahead and do that. We can go ahead and start in the beginning. Chapter 1, the crime that you were never meant to see. Let's get on into it, guys. Shout out to everybody tuning in on TikTok. Shout out to everybody tuning in on YouTube. Right now, I'm going to read live with you all the first chapter of my new book, Reclassified, 5 Centuries of Paper Genocide, How Race Was Used to Erase Native Black Americans, 1492 to 2025. And if anybody would like to get their copy, all you got to do is go to the website nativeblackancestry.com, click on the tab that says Reclassified New Book, and it'll take you straight to the page where you can get some more info on it and snag your copy. But the folks on TikTok voted on chapter 1, so that's the first chapter that we're going to start with, which is befitting. We got to start at the beginning, right, guys? We got to start at the beginning. Chapter 1, the crime you were never meant to see. How 5 centuries of paperwork erased an entire people. And actually, hold on. I'm gonna give y'all some real free game here. I'm also gonna get the image up here on the screen for you all, so that you guys can also see some of the pictures that I have in the book. Give me just a second. Is it gonna be monitor 3? Yeah, it's going to be monitor 3 over there. We're going to switch it around over here. Here we go. There we go. That should work good. All right. Chapter 1, numero 1. Zoom out of this a little bit. The crime you were never meant to see. Oh, wait. And actually, hold on, guys. My layout on YouTube is a little messed up. I'm covering the book a little bit. Let me fix that for you all. There we go. Chapter number 1, the crime you were never meant to see. How 5 centuries of paperwork erased an entire people. And right here, we start off with the emblem of America. Notice how she doesn't look like the Asiatic depiction of the Native Americans you see today, right, guys? Yeah. That's the emblem of America, 1790. I wrote this book because I've lived this history. I did not learn about paper genocide from a distance. I discovered it buried inside the records of my own family. As I trace my lineage through federal rolls, missionary logs, probate filings, census categories, and tribal documents, I watch the same pattern appear again and again. Every dark-skinned Native person in my bloodline had been mislabeled on purpose. Not because of genealogy, not because of any evidence, but because officials relied on lookership, racial judgment based on appearance, instead of clan, lineage, or tribal law. What I found was not just error, it was policy. And once I saw it, I could never unsee it. For more than 5 centuries, the indigenous peoples of the southeastern United States, the Muskogee Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Seminole, Yamasee, Wale, Natchez, Catawba, and dozens more, lived, governed, traded, farmed, fought, married, and raised families across this land. They built cities with engineered plazas and temple mounds. They established governments, diplomacy networks, and confederacies. Their alliances stretched across rivers, across coasts, across the Gulf, and deep into the Caribbean, where dark-skinned indigenous nations shared cultural, linguistic, and ancestral ties with the peoples of the Southeast. These societies were not isolated. They were part of an interconnected indigenous world traveling waterways, shorelines, and open sea. And many of them were dark-skinned. And here's what most people still don't realize. The Americas contain the largest pyramid-building cultures in the world. Not Egypt, not the Mediterranean, not Africa, the Americas. North, Central, and South hold between 2,000 and 3,000 pyramids, depending on how they are counted. Africa, by comparison, has roughly 300. And the single largest pyramid by volume on Earth is not in Egypt, it is in the Great Pyramid of Cholula in Mexico, a massive layered temple city connected through waterways and trade to the Gulf Coast and the southeastern tribes. The United States alone, Illinois, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Ohio, even Pennsylvania, is scattered with pyramidal structures, temple mounds, stepped platforms, and ceremonial centers. The Mississippian world was a pyramid civilization, every bit as sophisticated as the Maya, Olmec, and Zapotec civilizations in the South. And the cultural parallels run even deeper. The Maya, the Olmec, and the Taino, and the southeastern tribes were known for their gold adornment, gold in the mouth, gold beads, gold nose pieces, gold plates on the teeth, gold pendants, and gold pigments. Spanish chroniclers marveled at Caribbean indigenous people with gold dental work. Archaeologists recovered gold ornaments from Mesoamerica to the Gulf. And here's an image right here, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. A 1,600-year-old skeleton with gems on the teeth. Mayan bling, as they call it, found in Chiapas, Mexico. Today, their descendants, Native Black Americans, continue this cultural lineage through the wearing of gold grills, gold chains, gold rings, and gold tooth caps. What mainstream America calls street fashion is often an unbroken indigenous inheritance. And the same continuity exists in ball games. The Olmec and the Maya developed rubber ball cultures, games of ceremony, warfare, diplomacy, and cosmic symbolism. The Southeast mirrored this with stickball, chunky, and Mound Plaza ball games, played across Muskogee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Cherokee, and Catawba towns. These games were not recreational, they were sacred. Today, Native Black Americans dominate basketball, football, track, boxing, and other sports that echo these ancient traditions. What outsiders labeled natural athleticism is better understood as indigenous cultural inheritance, one that survived 5 centuries of displacement and mislabeling. This reality Architectural, spiritual, ceremonial, athletic, and genetic was obvious to the earliest Europeans, and it quickly became a political problem for colonial America. The deeper the colonizers pushed into the Southeast, the more they encountered indigenous nations who refused to fit neatly into the racial categories Europeans required for their economy and their mythologies. Here were native people whose complexions challenged the lie that black automatically meant African, and whose very presence contradicted the fantasy that white settlers brought civilization to an empty land. So the colonizers turned to the one weapon that required no battlefield, the pen. Instead of eliminating these nations by force, they rewrote who they were. They invented a quieter, more efficient form of destruction, paper genocide, a slow administrative suffocation of identity. It required no armies, it spilled no visible blood, but it worked. As handwritten descriptions became legal categories, as census labels hardened into policy, as tribal roles were split by color instead of clan, and as courts redefined identity so that skin tone replaced ancestry, entire indigenous nations were slowly erased from the official record. In the spaces where Creek, Choctaw, Seminole, or Yamasee once belonged, new designations appeared instead: Negro, colored, freedman, mulatto, black, African American. Identity, once carried by kinship, community, nation, and culture, became replaced by a racial box invented by outsiders. It was a racial shell game. And the United States government made sure the public never saw the hands moving the pieces. The world they tried to erase, the Southeastern indigenous civilization. Before Europeans ever crossed the Atlantic, the Southeast was not a wilderness waiting to be discovered. It was the heart of one of the largest and most advanced indigenous civilizations in the world, the Mississippian cultural sphere, a world of cities, pyramids, plazas, and engineered landscapes. Its cities rivaled and in many cases surpassed major European cities of the same era. Its architectural DNA stretched across a hemisphere of pyramid cultures. Cahokia, the American metropolis Europe pretended not to see. And here's a picture of the Cahokia Mound site outside of Illinois. If you guys don't know about this massive pyramid right outside of Illinois. They call it Cahokia. At its height, Cahokia in modern-day Illinois had a population equal to medieval London. Tens of thousands of people living around massive pyramid mounds, plazas, astronomical observatories, and palisaded fortifications. The largest mound, Monk's Mound, is bigger in base area than the Great Pyramid of Giza. This was not an accident. This was engineering. This was pyramid culture. This was America's first metropolis. Etowah, Moundville, and Spiro, southeastern capitals. Across the southeast stood monumental cities: Etowah in Georgia, with solstice-aligned pyramidal mounds; Moundville in Alabama, a ceremonial capital of artisans, farmers, and astronomer priests; Spiro, Oklahoma, a city whose artifacts reveal direct links to Mesoamerica. These sites formed a network of governance, trade, marriage alliances, and shared ceremony. The ancestors of the Muskogee Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Seminole did not merely inherit these cities, they continued their cultural, political, and ceremonial systems. Their clan structures, agricultural, mound refurbishing, ball games, and confederacies. A maritime indigenous hemisphere. Southeastern peoples were navigators who traveled the Gulf Stream, the Florida Straits, the Bahamas Banks, the Caribbean Chain. Shared agricultural patterns, tattoo systems, canoe building, architecture, and gold adornment confirmed hemispheric relationships between Southeastern and Caribbean nations. A world connected long before Europeans drew borders. This world existed for thousands of years, and it only began to disappear when Europeans needed it erased. Colonial eyes could not see indigenous sovereignty. Spanish chroniclers described dark-skinned indigenous peoples across the Southeast, Caribbean, and Gulf coasts. The British, however, could not reconcile dark-skinned native peoples with their expanding African slave system. When reality threatened colonial economics won. So they changed identity with paperwork. The administrative weapon that rewrote a continent. By the founding of the United States, Negro became a container for everyone dark. Mulatto became shorthand for indigenous but too dark for the record. Indian became a legal category that could be denied on sight. Paper replaced memory, race replaced lineage, bureaucracy replaced kinship. Entire nations were absorbed into racial categories they never chose. Why I had to write this book? This book follows the timeline from 1492 to now because the pattern becomes undeniable when seen in sequence. The Spanish created the first misclassification system. The British racialized it. Americans weaponized it. Eugenicists codified it. Modern genealogists still depend on it. My own grandfather, a full-blood Muskogee Creek man, was reclassified multiple times in multiple eras for reasons that had nothing to do with who he was. His identity remained a battlefield long after he passed. This is not ancient history. It is not finished. It did not end with the doll's roll. It continues every time a dark-skinned indigenous descendant hears, "You're too black to be native." That statement is not a personal opinion. It is the afterlife of paper genocide. This book is a restoration. This book is for the descendants whose records were falsified, for the families whose paperwork does not match their oral history, for the Native Black Americans told their ancestry is impossible. The appendix contains the primary sources, the receipts, so that no institution can deny its own documentation. This book is fast to read, but impossible to refute. It is a weapon. It is a mirror. It is restoration of the world they tried to erase. Welcome to the record they never meant for you to see. The reclassification begins in 1492, and it never stopped. And that concludes chapter 1, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. If anybody's just now tuning in, I'm doing a live reading on some of the chapters of my new book, Reclassified: 5 Centuries of Paper Genocide, How Race Was Used to Erase Native Black Americans, 1492 to 2025. If anybody would like to get a copy of this, all you got to do is go to my website, nativeblackancestry.com. When you're on the homepage, let me pull this up here. When you're on the homepage, all you got to do is click on the tab that says New Book. Zoom out a little bit. There we go. Just click on the tab right here that says Reclassified New Book. It'll take you to a page where you can get some more info on the book and get a copy. I just launched this book tonight, just like an hour ago. So I appreciate everybody becoming some of the first recipients of my new book. Now, we do have a live caller over on TikTok. We're going to bring them up in just a second. And then we're going to see what chapter the audience wants to vote to read next. You know, I'm a man of the people, okay? I said I'm going to give y'all some free game. Y'all voted on chapter 1, so we got into it. You know what? Let me see something. Here we go. Here we go. Who do we have over on the TikTok side of things? Let's see who this is. Coming from the back to the front is Saturn. Saturn, when I bring you up, go ahead and let us know where you're calling in from and what's on your mind.
I can't hear you, though.
You said what?
Oh, no, I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Hi, Mike.
Hey, where are you calling in from and what's on your mind?
I'm calling from Los Angeles, California. And I want to ask you, ask if you can give a lesson, because I remember one time I was on your live and you were saying that this whole idea that we went through an ethnogenesis is not true. And I would like for you, because I would like for you to, can you debunk that and give us a lesson on that?
Well, I don't really remember my previous remarks on it, so I can just kind of give you some fresh thoughts.
Well, yeah, please give me some fresh thoughts, because I remember your previous thoughts. You were saying that the pimp named Slickback.
No, yeah.
he was trying to say we went through an ethnogenesis, and I was like,
Well, we won't get into it too heavy, but basically, there's this new COINTELPRO 3.0, this foundational Black American thing, spearheaded by serial, career grifter and charlatan Tariq Nasheed. And a good way that I can kind of break this down for you guys is, again, we're talking about Black America's indigenous roots, right? If you guys have ever seen any of this FBA stuff floating around, just like most cults do, they have a nice little flag and stuff. And I'm sorry to the average casual FBA listener, you guys don't know you're part of a cult. You guys haven't researched the guy Tariq. You're just going along with the talking points. And yeah, we're different than Africans. Yeah, delineation. Yeah, reparations. But check this out, guys. If anybody has seen the FBA flag, you know that it looks just like this. We got the fist up. It says FBA. And there's that date, 1526. And, a lot of FBAs, I guess they've never asked themselves, what is the significance of that date, 1526? But if you go to the official FBA website, because, Tariq Nasheed, patented and trademarked it and, sells the snapbacks and the whole thing. But if you go to the official FBA website, it says right here, in 1526, let me move this out the way. In 1526, Spanish colonizer Lucas Vasquez de Ayllon brought the first documented enslaved Black people to the shores of what is now the South Carolina and Georgia coastline. Yeah. So the whole FBA doctrine is predicated on the belief that you descend from African slaves trafficked here in 1526 by Spanish conquistadors to South Carolina and Georgia. And me and my community obviously take issue with that because we actually do genealogy and we can trace our roots to the Americas much longer prior than 1526. I mean, what? 1526? So, the whole FBA thing is predicated on like, they're different than Africans. They're delineating, and they use the term delineating because they're still linking us to Africa. They're saying that they're the really cool Africans, that, they were here longer than the recent African migrants, so they became their own little new African group. But it's still trying to tie us to this continent that most of us don't have any ties to in the first place. That's the issue with the whole FBA thing you see going on. And honestly, it's just turned into a shit show of your mama jokes back and forth with African migrants. And I mean, come on, we're talking about real progress. We're talking about history, literature, education. I mean, if an African migrant calls in trying to talk slick to me saying, oh, we're not Indian, da, da, da. I mean, of course, I'm going to give them some get right, but we're not trying to just go back and forth with migrants all day.
But I think that's the thing, because these people are saying, oh, we went through an ethnogenesis, which is an entire new ethnicity group, like the mestizo or like that. And it's like, I don't believe that we went through an ethnogenesis because we
were never linked to them in the first place.
Like we did not create, there was not a whole new ethnic group created. We have been the native people, and we adapted to the situations that we had cultural, how you say that word? Cultural continuation. We had a continuation of our culture. We did not become a whole new ethnic group. There wasn't even enough Africans here to create a whole new ethnic group. And there were specific laws that kept the white people and the Black people away from each other. So how can we have an ethnogenesis?
Well, and that's a good point. So Ronald is in the TikTok chat saying they say it means a mixture of African and indigenous people. So that would be the COINTEL 4.0. First, they said Black Indians didn't exist. And I'm not talking about FBA in particular. I'm just talking about mainstream academia in general. First, they said Black Indians don't exist. Then we gave empirical evidence of our ancestry. Now they say, okay, you Black Indians do exist, but you're a mixture of African slaves that married some natives or something. Zero evidence, zero sources to cite on that. So watch out for that other psyops where they try to make you think if there's a Black indigenous person in the Americas, it's exclusively because they're an African that somehow was a slave of an Indian and then got adopted into the tribe somehow, or was like a West African slave that escaped and, fucked on a native girl. And that's the only way you get Black Indians, through slavery or Africans, or basically you got to go back to Africa, right? Anything to try to link us to Africa.
They always try to go back to Africa. So it's not. And first of all, an ethnogenesis is usually forced by the colonizers. That is why the Mexicans, they look like that, because they created a whole new ethnic group with a new language and a new everything. We been doing the same thing that we've been doing since we've been here, since we came out the ground. You get what I'm trying to
And
say?
some of us do have admixture, whether European or whether some African conquistador distant lineage, because there were African conquistadors coming over here, infiltrating indigenous communities. That's the Moors that a lot of ignorant Black Americans want to big up. And y'all heard about the Moors, Science Temple of America, another cult. Tried to, oh, we Morocco and Moors and maritime law and overstand Black law dictionary, right? I mean, again, people who don't know history, Moors were African colonizers.
I overstand and understand. And
Overstand, understand, interesting.
I think that's the thing, because when you still have a colonial mindset and you believe that you are like, because even if you have a quote unquote admixture, that doesn't mean you went through an ethnogenesis. That just means you have an admixture. And ethnogenesis is an entire new culture. We did not create an entire new culture. We were renamed.
And that's the big point that my book is really shedding light on. We didn't separate from Africa and create a new culture. We are literally living and maintaining the indigenous culture our ancestors have been doing for thousands of years. We just don't know it's indigenous culture because it's been relabeled as ghetto or street or Black culture, but the world loves it. It's globally exported. Everybody want to be a nigga, but don't nobody want to be a nigga, right?
Exactly, Mike. And I made a video about this, and some people's up in my comments trying to talk. And I don't talk to non-smart people. Like I don't do that. But and that's what I was trying to get them to understand. We did not create. We've been doing the same thing that we've been doing the whole time, right? Yes. It's just being renamed and reclassified is not creating a whole new ethnic group. And so thank you for explaining that, Mike. I got to go to bed. It's 11 out here. So.
Well, were you in the audience when I read the first chapter?
I was in the audience earlier today.
Earlier today too. Oh, hey, so if you
how much the book? I'm gonna go buy it.
Shit, it's $47. Best $47 you spend in your life, if you ask me. But I'm biased. Okay, but it's about 2.5 years worth of research. But if you just saw me read through the first chapter, I was touching on it right here on this page. How we literally maintain the same culture, right? The Maya, the Aztec, the Taino, the southeastern tribes were known for their gold adornment, gold in the mouth, gold pendants, gold beads. Look at the ancient skeletoid Mayan remains with the gems on the teeth. And I mean, so when you see Black Americans doing it present day, it's not because we just created some new culture out of nowhere. It's in us. It's in our DNA. Let's talk about it.
And that's all I'm trying to understand, and to help these people decolonize their mind. And ethnogenesis is a colonization word. That's a colonizer word, right? Saying that, oh, we just all Black, that's a colonized way of thinking, right? And so it's just crazy to me how they say, oh, we're an ethnogenesis and they took our culture and we had to create. That's not true. We've been doing the same thing. We still dancing, singing, powwow. We still doing the same shit we've always been doing. And so that's
different
what
tribes,
I want.
Different factions, matrilineal society.
Literally,
we get our beefs and disputes out in a basketball game, a football game, go to war real quick. I mean, come on.
And even the language, and this is what it pisses me off, because we are the culture here. We are the base here. Everyone absorbed into our culture. They absorb into our culture. So because of that, there is no possible way we could have an ethnogenesis.
Facts.
That's all I gotta say, facts. Mike. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for letting me pop my shit on here.
No. Go ahead and click that request to join button and pop your shit whenever you want, okay?
Thank you so much. All right. Y'all have a good night.
See you next time. Peace. All right, let's see who our next caller on TikTok is. Who do we have here? Christian. Christian, when I bring you up, let us know where you're calling in from and what's on your mind.
Hey, how you doing, man? I'm from Texas.
Texas, by way of?
What do you mean?
Like, where's your family from originally?
Oh, from both sides, Mexico and Texas.
Oh, okay. And before Mexico?
Nowhere. This is where we're from.
Oh, so you're claiming that you descend from indigenous Mexicans?
Well, I'm Huachichil. That's my tribe.
Oh,
That's why I wanted to talk. You know,
well,
I ain't gonna be disrespectful.
hold on. I wasn't finished. I'm just learning a little bit more about you. You can go ahead and unmute yourself. But this is the first time today that I spoke to someone who descends from indigenous Mexicans. So are you claiming that you have no admixture with any other lineages? You're just purely indigenous
My tribe's been
Mexican?
in the same area forever, dude.
I wasn't talking about your tribe. I was talking about your genealogy.
Yeah, no.
So you've got no European admixture.
Might be some, but that's like, you know, like everybody else. You know what I mean?
No, I don't know what you mean. Maybe some, but that's like everyone else. You know what you mean?
I
No.
mean, you can clearly look at me and you could tell I'm not a white man, dude.
Your camera's not on. I can't look at you and tell what you are. No, you're
Well,
wrong.
I mean,
And a lot of Mexicans are white passing and even classify as white on census documents. So
I don't
no.
know, man. I'm dark as hell, man. But I mean,
Okay.
I was just gonna be respectful, but I just wanted to say something real
Well, hold
quick.
on. Before you get into what you want to say, I'm just trying to learn a little bit more about you. I'm very well researched on
I got you.
Mesoamerican history, on the
if you want to
mestizo
know
myth. Stop interrupting when I'm speaking. I'll let you know when it's your turn to speak. You called in to speak to me. Remember, it's not the other way around. So as I was saying, I'm very familiar with Mexican history, with the mestizo myth. So when you say that you're a Mexican and you're claiming indigenous, and it's like pulling teeth for you to acknowledge any possible European admixture, I just find it confusing when anybody who knows anything about Mexican history knows about the Spanish conquistador admixture, the admixture from the Philippines, as well as
I'm
the
trying to tell you
African
about my
slave
tribe, dude.
admixture. No, you're trying to interrupt me while I'm speaking, and I already told you not to do that. But go ahead and unmute yourself. Let's see what you have for us. You're just purely indigenous, maybe some European. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to tell you about my tribe. So where I'm from, we're Huachichil, Zacateca, right? And we grew up, dude. Like nobody ever really placed an importance on race and stuff, until I got here to the U.S.
Whoa,
and this is why.
I'm sorry. Mexico, you're from Mexico, and you're claiming that you guys don't place an importance on race. You guys literally have racial caste systems. Hold on, hold on. I got to pull up a map of the Spanish racial caste system because I can't believe you're really getting. No, I'm not listening because I don't care to speak to you. You called in to speak to me and you keep interrupting for some reason. I don't know. But so far, you've been up here lying, participating in capology, talking about you didn't know racism until you got to the You didn't know races until you got to. Y'all have a whole caste system. What are you talking about, dumbass? You guys got African grandmas you hide in the closet, call them negritas and shit. You thought I didn't know, huh? Y'all had the most crazy, stringent racial caste system I've ever seen on planet Earth. Look at the different racial categories they had, guys. The English got the blueprint from his descendants, not the indigenous ones he's trying to claim, the Spanish conquistador granddaddy he don't want to admit to. The racial what the fuck? Y'all had a Major La Raza, dumbass. You think I don't know about the Major La Raza? Motherfucker, you talking to a historian. You ain't gonna pull that bullshit up here. You is not gonna get away with pulling that bullshit. Come on. You thought I don't know about the Major La Raza. Okay. And hold on, guys. I'm gonna find the Wikipedia page because the Wikipedia has a nice little image that depicts how racist and strange those folks get. And I'm sorry, it was really called the blanqueamento. The blanqueamento, meaning whitening. It was a social, political, and economic practice used in post-colonial countries in the Americas and Oceania to improve the race towards a supposed ideal of whiteness. You come from a place that had crazy racial caste system that had a whole whitening policy. The blanqueamento. Okay. He thought we didn't know about this, huh? Yeah, so y'all wonder why I wasn't going to let him just get up here and do a whole bunch of lying. This image depicts it perfectly. This is what they would do. They would have either a dark-skinned indigenous woman, a negros de terra, or an African slave. It doesn't matter. But if you're richly melanated, They're going to force you to breed with a Spaniard and have a mixed breed, a mestizo child, a muleta, if you will. Then they force her to also have a baby with a Spaniard. And next thing you know, not even 2 generations pass, and the child is coming out white passing, indistinguishable from a European. Guys, they had whole skin whitening agendas for centuries in Mexico. But I guess he doesn't know his own people's history because he fled over here to the United States. He's not in his ancestral homeland of Mexico nor Spain. But guys, he's backstage. I run this like the Roman Colosseum, guys. Put a 0 in the chat if you don't really care to hear from him again. Put a 1 in the chat if you want me to not only bring him up, but put on a 2-minute timer and just let him speak uninterrupted for a good 2 minutes. Let's see. Rochelle says, Mike TV, you did an outstanding job on the reclassified book. Impressed with the first chapter read. Thank you. I appreciate that. Rob says, finally catching you live, Mike TV. Salute. Well, salute to you as well, Rob. Oh, and let me see what the TikTok chat has been saying while I've been exposing his people and his culture. Oh, now he's in my chat saying, you're African. Sir, you're from Mexico. You have a higher likelihood of African heritage than I do. You're just ashamed of it because you have an identity crisis. That's why the prompt on TikTok says Latinos and Africans have the biggest identity crisis. Black Americans are indigenous to America. Prove me wrong, call in. And so far, we couldn't even really get to your point because you were just capping so hard early on. It just... Hey, where are you from? He named some shit in the States. I already forget which one. He's not memorable. After he said some shit in the States, I said, no, like by way of, like, where's your family from originally? He said Mexico. I said, okay, before Mexico, where were you guys? Oh, no, I'm just from Mexico. I'm indigenous. I'm with Tata Totopec. So you don't have any European admixture? Oh, I mean, of course, maybe, you know, like we all do, right, dude? Like, no. What you talking about, boy? And now he's in my chat talking about I'm an African and he don't even know who he is. But guys, let me see what yeah, Mexicans are confused. You're right, Amor. Mexicans are confused. This shit is crazy. Minister says school him. Damn. Major La Raza. Thank you. That's how you spell it. That's what I was looking for originally. That's the other term. Major La Raza. They got so many different colonial skin whitening policies, you know? Major La Raza. Oh, no, Huffington Post wants me to pay for their articles. They're not that good. You know, AI is writing their shit. Major La Raza, improving the race through mestizaje, the pedagogy of anti-blackness in Ecuador. Guys, it doesn't matter which part of Central or South America, any place the Spanish colonized, Mexico included, has some crazy racial issues. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Look at the caste system chart. Jesus Christ. Whew. I see some 2s in the chat. I see some 1s in the chat. Karima says they try to wipe out our people. Big facts, big facts. Let me see. Michael says, nice work, Mike. Appreciate it. Vega says, also Portugal did that stuff. Yes, you're right. Amor says, even today, every Latin family prefers the lighter skin who looks white. Oh, yeah, absolutely. They'd be white with green eyes and ginger hair and shit. Yeah. Been mixing with Europeans for a long, long time. I'm seeing some 1s. Oh, y'all want to use them like cannon fodder like this? Indigenous Copper Skin says, put this on YouTube. Hey, we live on YouTube and TikTok right now. Motherfuckers be calling in, not realizing this lives on the internet forever. You got to come correct. You have to provide sources. I mean, the crazy part is he's going to get up here for 2 minutes uninterrupted, say a bunch of ignorant, nonsensical, racist shit. And then when I ask him to cite a source on his claim that I'm an African, he's not going to be able to cite one. And then he's going to crash out and probably drop the N-word with a hard R. I don't know, guys, but 9 times out of 10, that's how these Latinos get down. It's not news to us. But you guys are putting some 1s in the chat. Let me go ahead and bring an online timer up. We'll give him 2 minutes uninterrupted to get all of his weird little vitriol off of his chest. I mean, guys, it's like 1 a.m. or something. We would never be calling in to speak to no Mexicans about who they are and where they come from, but they are obsessed with us. Okay. This is getting awkward. It's getting real awkward. Christian. Very nice indigenous name as well. I wonder if Christian is just your European name, and then you have like a secret indigenous name. Love always says blank ornamento. Yeah. Bam says Mike, did the same thing happen on that? Oh yes, Hispaniola. Hispaniola was ground zero. That's the first place Columbus landed. Second place, 1493, was Puerto Rico and surrounding islands. And yeah, everywhere he went, indigenous taken as slaves, indigenous reclassified, all kinds of shit. Young Who says, "What's your DNA?" Hey, motherfuckers is so obsessed with us. They want to know our blood work, y'all. They want to know our blood work. Hey, you ain't go Henrietta Lacks me, buddy. You ain't gonna get my immortal genes. I'm cool. I'm cool. Michael says Spaniards was the last race to be civilized. Yes or no? I'm not sure about that. I haven't looked into the history of Europe to see who was necessarily the first. I know that the Spanish have so much weird African heritage because they were conquered by the Muslim and African Moors for several hundred years. And then when they start colonizing the Americas, they do intermix with Filipino slaves, African slaves, and indigenous slaves. So Spanish, I mean, Latinos, they are the biggest mutt muffins with the biggest identity crisis, if you ask me. Let me see what you guys are. Somebody says, let him up. Oh, he has a friend. He has a friend on some Toy Story shit. You got a friend in me. Come on. Arab as well. Yeah, right now Henrietta Lacks. Yeah. Christian, when I bring you up, your time starts when you start speaking.
Hey man, so I was starting to talk to you respectfully, and I don't know, that's kind of weird to me the way you were starting conversation, but I was literally telling you the people that I come from. So on my dad's side, we're Huachichil, Zacatecan, right? On my mom's side, we're Tepehuan. I know exactly who I am. Right? I know exactly what region I come from, right? And I also have family on this side because obviously we immigrated about the 1930s. We always go back and forth, you know. So what I was trying to get at you earlier is it's kind of weird to me when I came to the U.S. how everything over here is segregated and race related. And you brought up that caste system stuff on your image, dude. That's an image of the caste system that's the Spanish imposed in colonial Mexico, right? Back then they had haciendas, right? They used to take the natives from the area to kind of pacify them because they were getting attacked, right? So that's kind of like the way that the Catholic Church and the way the Spanish they would kind of structure their society, right? But you know, everybody in Mexico is native to, for the most part, you have 60 to 70% native blood, and most people over there they come from tribes, dude. It's not set up the way the U.S. is with reservations and all that stuff. All right, so we're nowhere we're from. But what's weird to me is I don't understand, you know, and I know there's some black people that are mixed with natives and stuff over here, but I don't understand. I've been seeing that a lot lately. Why a lot of people over here have been claiming to be the original people to the Americas, but we've clearly been here. Like we haven't gone anywhere, you know. I heard some people say that we're Siberians, dude. That was like 15,000 years ago. You know, we were the first people that came to the Americas. You know, and the other thing I always wonder why is like, why aren't you proud to be African, dude? Like Africa has a lot of cultures. You know, they have the Mali, the Bantu, you know, Sam Bushman, all that stuff, dude. Like I don't understand, you know, why you're claiming somebody else's ethnicity.
Thank God, the timer is up. And you've already proved that you don't know how to stay on mute while I'm speaking. So I'll disconnect you while I'm speaking, and then you can request to join again since you want to speak to me so bad for whatever reason. Oh, Lord, that was a mouthful, guys. That was a mouthful. And I really do hope that he requests to join. You know, come back up. I'll bring you up in a second because I do have some questions for you since you made so many statements that were nonsensical. So first, you said that you were trying to talk respectfully. No, you weren't. That's why you were in my chat trying to tell me that I'm African when you don't know me nor my ancestors, right? You were trying to tell me who you are, the tribe that you come from, et cetera, the region that you come from. The crazy part is nobody asked you. Nobody here cares what region you come from. Nobody cares what tribe you're claiming on some stolen valor shit. It's you who cares about us and what we identify as, not the other way around. You haven't even done your genealogy. When I asked you if you have European heritage, you were like, oh, maybe. I mean, we all do, right? So why don't you start by creating a family tree before you speak to me? Maybe a prerequisite before you try to challenge me, a full-time genealogist, on my heritage. Maybe you should at least do your family tree, buddy. No. It's just a suggestion. You then admit that the Spanish imposed a caste system in Mexico. So why are you still promoting the notion that you didn't experience racism and segregation until you came to America if the Spanish imposed a caste system in Mexico, where you're from? Guys, he just was up here not making any sense. He then said some dumb shit about most Mexicans are 60 to 70% native blood. That's false. You haven't done a single Mexican's blood work to make that statement. But you see how people just make strange, asinine, unfactual statements and just promote it so confidently. They're just so confident in their ignorance. Oh, we're all like 60, 70% native, and we're just supposed to take his word for it. He's not talking about the Manila slave trade, where for centuries, hundreds of thousands of Filipino slaves were imported and bred with Spanish conquistadors. He's not talking about the Spanish. That is the whole reason why his people speak Spanish. But he's really up here claiming he's 60 to 70% native, doesn't want to acknowledge his European Spanish ancestry, doesn't want to acknowledge his African slave ancestry, doesn't want to acknowledge his Filipino ancestry, but he wants to try to force an African identity on me. It's not working, buddy. It's not a good look. It's weird. That's what it is. He then said some dumb shit about, oh, well, there's some black people who are mixed. Sir, you don't know what you're talking about. You're claiming to be from an indigenous tribe in Mexico. You're not from our ancestors' lands. You're not from the Southeast, where we're from. You don't know nothing about our culture, nothing about our customs. You don't know a damn thing. And if you were really proud to be an indigenous Mexican, which we know you're not, then you'd still be in Mexico, wouldn't you? Why would you flee your ancestral homeland to come across the border to mine? And then while you're in my house, you want to try to force an African identity on me with zero evidence. I mean, it's just laughable because clearly you don't know who you're talking to. My ancestors are written about in books. Speaking of books, I just wrote one and launched one tonight. I was reading a whole chapter of it filled with receipts. And so far, you've given us zero sources to cite your claims with. So here's the thing. If you're going to come back Christian, then how about you cite a source that proves that I'm an African? Since you were making the weird statements in my chat, you didn't want to make it on the panel. For some reason, you're scared of Mike. It's like I'm going to reach through the internet and do something to you, right? You don't want to actually say it with your chest when I'm on the panel with you, but in the chat, you want to talk about you're African, you're... Oh no, when he got on the panel, he pussyfooted around it. He pulled some, I just don't understand. I see a lot of black people like identifying as indigenous, saying they're original, but like, why aren't you proud to be like African? Okay, buddy. You obviously don't know who you're speaking to, but you're going to learn the hard way. I really hope he calls back in so I can give you guys a perfect case study, because if he calls back in, he's not going to be able to cite a single source to back his claim that I'm an African. Come on. We got a couple more people backstage. Before we bring up some more live callers, I want to give you guys another rundown on where you can find the new book, Reclassified, 5 Centuries of Paper Genocide, How Race Was Used to Erase Native Black Americans, 1492 to 2025. I just wrote over 100-page book on the reclassification of my indigenous ancestry, our indigenous ancestry, and he thinks he's equipped to call in and challenge me on said ancestry? You don't know who you're fucking with, but you're gonna learn the hard way. It's so sad. I gotta deal with you like you're an infant. They know not what they do. You're gonna fuck around and get your feelings hurt up here, Playboy. It's not a good look. But let me see what the chat's talking about before we bring up some more live callers. We've had hundreds of people watching on YouTube, had over 600 people watching on YouTube a moment ago. Good Lord, we know this information is crucial to the community. Let's see what the folks are talking about on TikTok. And then I got to get out of here in maybe like 20 minutes. So the callers that are backstage, they'll probably be the last callers. Your boy has a flight to catch. Indian Giver says, we appreciate you, Mike TV. Well, hey, I appreciate your continued viewership. Let's see what the folks are talking about. Star, when I bring you up, let the people know where you're calling in from and what's on your mind. And people on YouTube, let me know, do you guys still hear an echo? Have you guys been hearing an echo this whole time or not? Let me know. Star, where you calling in from and what's on your mind?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
What's up, bro?
What's up? Where you calling in from and what's on your mind?
I'm calling in from Ohio. So, is this it said Black Americans are indigenous to America? Prove me wrong.
Yes. Would you like to attempt to prove me wrong?
Yeah, sure.
Great. How about this? Let's play a easy game, okay? You cite a source to support your claim, then I'll cite a source to support my claim. Does that sound fair?
Okay.
All right. So what's your source that Black Americans don't have indigenous ancestry?
I won't say Black Americans don't have indigenous ancestry, but are Black Americans indigenous to the Americas?
I mean, that's one and the same. I'm not going to say they have indigenous ancestry, but are they indigenous? I mean, what are we talking about?
Overall, are you saying we not from Africa?
Sir, you might be from Africa. You might be an African migrant. I don't know you at all. I don't know your family's genealogy. I'm talking about me and my community. I don't know you.
Overall, the haplogroups, I'll say we from Africa. Is there any Native American haplogroups
Sir,
that we have?
I first tasked you to cite your source, and then I said I would cite my source. So if you're going to say something about haplogroups, you have to cite a source that says, based on haplogroup, all Black Americans come from Africa.
Okay, so what you want a scientific study or something like that?
Do you not know what a source is?
Of course I know what a source is. What you want to
So then why are you asking me what I want? A source can be a multitude of things. It can be a book, it can be a publication, it can be a theory. You can say you heard it from a nigga down the street. Just what's your source? Where did you get this from? Who taught you about haplogroups and this made you think that we're not indigenous? Cite a source.
I'll tell you what, since you was prepared, you've been up here for a few hours doing this.
No, I've been up here for an hour and 12 minutes. And yes, I can show you dozens of sources. I got them all throughout my book. But first, you were supposed to be showing me your source, and then I was going to show you mine. Remember? That was the arrangement we made. I asked you, was it fair? You said yes.
Okay.
So can you cite a source?
Yeah, I can definitely can.
Great.
So since to make this as fair as possible, since you are the one that's making the extraordinary claim that really all science goes against, I would really like to.
If all science goes against it, you should be able to cite a source that says all science goes against my claim. We're still waiting on your source.
Would you be willing to show your source first?
We already established the rules of engagement. I literally asked you, is that fair? You said yes. Don't get insecure now and acquiesce. I mean, at least just be a man and say you don't have a source. At least just man up and say, hey, Mike, I'm unprepared. I don't have a source. I just feel this way. I just heard something about haplogroups one day. I forgot where I heard it from. And now I think we all come from Africa. Just be a man about it. What's wrong? Come on. Unmute yourself. Do you want to just admit you don't have a source, or should we still wait for the source to appear?
I'll get you the source, but I
Okay,
think
so how long is it going to take you to get us the source? I already said I only got 20 more minutes up here. I got to catch a flight. How long
you
do you
don't have
need?
no sources. You
How
don't
long
have
do you
no
need?
sources. Is you gonna get a
How
source?
long do you need?
Give me 2 minutes.
Okay, he needs 2 minutes, guys. Let me go ahead and pull up a timer real quick for 2 minutes. And when he comes back, he's going to have a source for us. Just a moment. 2-minute timer. Damn. Hey, if I was ever going to do some weird shit, like call in and try to debate someone on their ancestry, I mean, I would at least be prepared to present what I'm talking about. But hey, 2-minute timer. Let's see if he has a source at the end of 2 minutes. Shoot. Strange behavior. And what are you guys thinking about, chat? What are you guys thinking about? Y'all are saying he's an African migrant. I mean, hey, who knows? That's why I said, sir, I don't know your ancestry. I mean, I can't speak to you. I don't know you like that. What are we talking about? We got some more people trying to call him backstage. We're going to give him time to find a source. We're going to give him 2 minutes as requested.
Okay, so the sources I have is from the National Library of Medicine. It's a study on African American mitochondrial haplogroups.
Mm-hmm. And what's it say?
It says the conclusion of the study.
And actually, I kind of don't want to even take your word for it. Let me just pull up your source so everybody watching right now on YouTube and TikTok can read along with you. What's the website that you just Googled that from?
It's the source is the National Library of Medicine. The study was done by the National Center for Biotechnological Information.
What's the URL of the website? I'm going to go to the website. What's the URL?
The name of the article is Mitochondrial DNA Diversity in African American Population.
Okay, hold on. One in my ear. Let me get rid of that. You said mitochondrial shit. How do you spell mitochondrial? MITOCHO. Gerio. You said mitochondrial DNA in what? In African Americans?
Diverse DNA diversity in African American population.
Diversity in African American population. All right, let's see if we can find what he's talking about. Gotta zoom in on this. And you said, was this National Institute of Health?
It was done by the National Library of Medicine.
Let me type in that keyword as well then. National Library of Medicine. National Institute of Health. Yeah, I think it is this one. It was just probably, maybe when I go to it, it'll just say within here somewhere that it was conducted by whoever you just said. Just give me a second here. Make sure I can copy and paste this as well. All right. And you know what? What I'm going to have to do real quick is I'm going to have to bring it on my other monitor. The audience can see it, but I need to bring it on this big monitor in front of me so I can actually read it. All right, here we go. So mitochondrial DNA, author manuscript, diversity, African population. Okay, so where in here does it say that we all come from Africa?
It says overall, the mtDNA diversity observed in the study in coordinate with those published for the African American African population, specifically the most commonly observed haplogroup found
Okay,
in
hold on. Time
studies.
out, time out. I think I'm on the wrong section. I'm looking at the abstract. Which section are you reading from?
I'm reading the conclusion.
Okay, so you're all the way at the conclusion. You're at the bottom. So let me go all the way down to the bottom. Let me get a conclusion for you. That's references, acknowledgments, conclusion. Okay. Overall, the and hold on, give me just a second here. All right. So it said, oh, and I'm sorry, my audience can't see it. Only me. Let me change this. Got so many monitors working. Appreciate your patience. References, conclusion. Here we go. So this is what he's referring to, guys. This is a source. In the conclusion of the study, it says, overall, the mtDNA diversity observed in our study is concordant. And hey, I'm not too familiar with the word concordant. I would think it means congruent or, conclusively tied to something. But let me just quickly look up the word concordant. In agreement, consistent. Okay. In our study, is concordant with those published for the African American and African populations. Specifically, the most commonly observed haplogroups found in our study were L2A, 19.8%, followed by L1B, 10.2%. The data reported here add to the increasing number of mtDNA sequences available for the African American populations and can be useful for forensic anthropologic and biomedical investigations. All right, maybe you're reading something that I'm not reading, but where does this say that we all come from Africa?
Well, clearly you kind of setting up a straw man because you clearly ignoring the fact that I just
Sir, time out. I'm not setting up a straw man. Let's not get pseudo with the terminology. I asked you to cite a source. You cited a source. We just read your source, and this source is supposed to affirm your claim that we all come from Africa. And nowhere in that conclusion am I getting the notion that it's saying we all come from Africa. I mean, it doesn't say, hey, because of this DNA and this haplogroup, it is conclusive that all Black Americans descend from Africans. I mean, it doesn't say that anywhere. Words matter. Did you even read your source before you cited it? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
clearly you just ignored what it clearly just stated, that overall the over 30% of that is haplogroup L, right? So that would debunk that we never came from Africa when we clearly have Afro haplogroups.
So are you trying to tell me that conclusion we read asserts your claim that we all come from Africa?
Really, for real, if we going by logic and debate,
I mean, if we going for real by like logic and debate, let's read your own source again. You know that the study only looked at mtDNA. That's only your maternal line. So they didn't even look at both paternal and maternal line. They looked at one side and said that there's a minute percentage that lines up with Africans, and you're going to try to use that to claim that we don't have indigenous roots and we all come from Africa. Because one study came to the conclusion that 19.8% followed by 10% on the matrilineal line has some ties to Africa. Sir, this is a weak ass source. This is ridiculous. But hey, check this out. I know you can't hold your tongue. I'm gonna put you backstage for just a second. Request to join. I'll bring you right up in just a moment. But damn, you really thought that you was cooking, huh? He really thought he got 2 minutes and he found him he did some Googling. And this is crazy because I've had several pan goofies who use the same source. This is not the first time I've had someone call into my show, use the same exact conclusion from the same and y'all aren't reading what's in the conclusion, are you? Okay. All right. Whatever. Pan goofy, if you ask me. Come on. They only studied mtDNA. That literally means one ancestor out of thousands. mtDNA is your mother's mother's mother. Doesn't say anything about your father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather, or any of your entire paternal line. You can't claim that all Black Americans come from Africa using a test that only checks one female ancestor. You fucking imbecile. What are we talking about? mtDNA is 0.0001% of your family tree. He wants us to rid ourselves of our indigenous heritage, take on some false African persona because some mainstream academic study says 0.0001% of our family tree has a tie to Africa. Damn, y'all. Hey, this is taking the one drop rule to a whole new extreme. I mean, at least let it be a drop. At least let it be 1%. Guys, I got to say it again for the people in the back. That study said that 0.0001% of our maternal DNA traced to Africa. That's what mtDNA is. So whenever y'all have a pseudo pan goofy calling into you, trying to talk to you about haplogroups and mtDNA, now you know, because you heard it from Mike TV, that mtDNA is literally testing 0.0001% of your family tree. Come on. Using that claim to say that all Black Americans come from Africa is the equivalent of reading one sentence of a 500-page book and thinking that you know the whole plot. But you really thought you was up here cooking or some shit. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it didn't test autosomal DNA. It did not test indigenous markers. Did not test admixture. Yeah. Trying to prove that everyone came from Africa with one mitochondrial haplogroup study is like using a foot x-ray to diagnose someone's vision problems. It just makes no sense, buddy, old pal. It makes no sense. Damn. Jesus. Who's backstage? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I told him that if he showed a source, I'd show a source. Guess what? I have a whole appendix in my book with all my sources that I cite in my book. Check this out. This is a quote. And I quote, "Dark creeks, though long acknowledged by their own people, are by the United States mistaken for Africans." And the source is not some study talking about 0.001% of your mtDNA. The source is missionary field notes of the 1880s from the Presbyterian Historical Society archives. We have an actual quote from a European missionary admitting that there are dark-skinned indigenous Creeks, which is my tribe. You're talking to a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation. I have federal citizenship with the tribe of my ancestors. I don't got no citizenship with no African tribe. Neither do you. But you want to make me think I'm not a Creek Indian. I'm an African. Okay. All right. Yeah. We even have leaders of my tribe, Creek indigenous leaders of my tribe, speaking out against the racial reclassification. Quote, "Dark-skinned Creeks are being systematically excluded from our rolls and denied their rightful place in this nation." End quote. And what's the source? Silas Jefferson. And that was a letter that he sent to federal officials. Here's another quote for you. Since, you can give me one weak source and I can just rattle off a dozen because I just finished writing a whole book about 500 years of racial reclassification, dummy. Quote, "We are Creeks, yet the agents who come among us look only at color and treat our people as Negroes." That source is from a Creek citizens petition in the Muskogee Nation, 1880s, Oklahoma Historical Society is where you can find that. Here's another quote. "Our dark people are called Negroes by those who do not know our families nor our clans." End quote. That's a Creek National Council testimony from the 1880s. Indian Chancery Records, OHS, Oklahoma Historical Society. But hey, he thought I didn't have sources, and I just named several. He thought he can come up here and debate me when he had to go Google some shit last minute, and all I got to do is read another chapter of my book. You know what? I think that's how we're going to wrap up this broadcast, y'all. Let me go ahead and read the next chapter of my book. We started off by reading chapter 1. Let's get into chapter 2. 1600 to 1700, the Indian slave trade era. How Negro became a status imposed on dark-skinned natives. And of course, we got to start with the map of the southeastern tribes. We don't come from Africa. We come from right here. Nice try, though, pal. Nice try. It was kind of cute. Not really. If the 1500s were the era of confusion, then the 1600s became the era of conversion, not in the spiritual sense, but in the racial one. This was the century when the English stepped into the indigenous Southeast and, without understanding the people or the world they had entered, began redefining identity through a crude combination of violence, commerce, and paperwork. It was the century when the meanings of Indian, Black, and Negro collapsed into one another through the logic of slavery, and when dark-skinned indigenous peoples were pulled into a racial system that would shape the future United States. By the time English traders and settlers established footholds in the Southeast, they knew almost nothing about the indigenous nations around them. They did not understand matrilineal clans or the political power of the mother's line. They did not understand town-based citizenship, kin-town diplomacy, or the web of alliances that connected the Wale, Yamasee, Appalachee, Creek, Catawba, Timucua, and Cherokee. They did not grasp that these were sovereign nations with their own laws, hierarchies, and foreign policies, but the English did understand labor. They understood profit, and in their worldview, the most important category was not nation or people, but slave. This is the century when the logic hardened into racial policy. As English settlements grew in Virginia and the Carolinas, the Indian slave trade exploded. Between 1600 and 1700, the English enslaved more indigenous people from the Southeast than Africans. Captives from dozens of tribal towns were taken in raids, traded away after manufactured debts, or seized as supposed retaliation for imagined offenses. They were marched to Charleston, inspected, branded, and shipped out to Barbados, Jamaica, Bermuda, New England, or Virginia. Some were taken directly from Ocmulgee Creek towns. Others came from Yamasee villages, such as Pocotaligo or Chichesi. Others from the Appalachee towns devastated by Spain's mission system. Most of these people had no African ancestry whatsoever, but in English records, they were almost always called Negroes. That was the first racial conversion. The English did not use ethnographic categories, they used status categories. In their administrative world, Indian did not mean a member of any indigenous nation. It meant someone recognized as such by English officials, usually because they were useful, allied, protected, or needed for trade. Negro, on the other hand, meant enslaved. It meant owned. It meant commodified. So if a native person was captured, they were automatically classified as a Negro, because enslavement itself became the label. The logic fed on itself. The label justified the enslavement, and the enslavement justified the label. A 1685 Carolina colonial record captured this mechanism with brutal clarity. Quote, "The Indians taken in war are called Negroes and sold likewise." End quote. The sentence is short, but its implications are enormous. It shows that identity had shifted from kinship to labor category. The same document reveals something else the English refused to confront. Many of the enslaved indigenous captives were dark-skinned. That alone, in the eyes of English officials, was enough to collapse their identity into the racial box the English already understood. Another record from 1693 makes this point even more explicit. Quote, "A great many of these Indian captives are of dark complexion and are accounted Negroes." End quote. That line is the hinge between two worlds, the indigenous Southeast and the racial future of North America. It shows that the English made no distinction between dark-skinned native people and Africans. Skin tone had become the only category that mattered. A trader's letter from the 1670s offers the most revealing statement of all. Quote, "They be Indians, but are taken and sold for Negroes by reason of their hue." End quote. This is the earliest English articulation of what would later define the Dawes Rolls, the Racial Integrity Act, and the entire bureaucratic system of Jim Crow. Identity was determined not by lineage or community, but by appearance, by what a white official believed a person looked like. The doctrine of lookership was born here long before it appeared in federal law. Bacon's Rebellion, the turning point the colonies tried to hide. By the 1670s, the colonies were not only struggling with native relations, they were struggling with class unity. In 1676, Bacon's Rebellion erupted in Virginia, bringing together something the colonial elite considered far more dangerous than any indigenous uprising: poor whites, enslaved Africans, and enslaved indigenous people fighting side by side. This multiracial rebellion terrified the ruling class. It was the nightmare scenario. The oppressed realizing they had more in common with each other than with the wealthy planters controlling them. The colonial response was not reconciliation, it was division by design. After Bacon's Rebellion collapsed, Virginia elites passed a series of laws that would reshape racial identity for the next 300 years. The first anti-miscegenation laws, forbidding marriage or sex between whites and non-whites. The legal invention of white as a protected class. The merging of dark-skinned indigenous people and Africans into a single Negro category. Harsh penalties to prevent cooperation between poor whites and enslaved peoples. This was the moment when the colonial government discovered a new tool of social control. If you divide the lower classes by race, they will never unite against you again. Racial classification became a political weapon. The caste system of white and Negro was born here, and it would determine how indigenous people were recorded for centuries. By the 1690s, the consequences of the system had reached a breaking point. The Southeast was drowning in violence. English traders demanded military alliances, then enslaved their allies anyway. They manipulated trade debts to justify seizing hostages. They raided towns for captives to sell. They targeted dark-skinned indigenous communities more aggressively because English record keepers assumed that darker complexion meant a person could be enslaved. A 1698 South Carolina report spelled out the logic with disturbing precision. Quote, "Many of the captives brought in are of such blackness that they are more esteemed Negroes than Indians." End quote. In that single line, the colonial racial hierarchy becomes unmistakable. Blackness meant enslavable. Enslavable meant Negro, and Negro meant not Indian. With each new entry in the record books, the paper identity of entire indigenous nations began to collapse. Nowhere was this clearer than in Carolina, where the most aggressive racial sorting system in the colonies took shape. English officials did not track genealogy, clan identity, or political affiliation. They sorted bodies into three categories based on appearance. Lighter-skinned indigenous people were labeled Indian. Darker-skinned indigenous people were labeled Negroes. And the darkest, regardless of ancestry, were labeled simply Negro. And excuse me, guys, I think I had a little bit of slip of the words there. I'm not sure if I said that correctly. The darker-skinned indigenous people were labeled Negro Indians, whereas the darkest out of the bunch, they simply just get hit with the Negro label. They just take the Indian off. And if anybody wants to fact check me on that, they first began classifying Indians and Africans in the same category as Negro in 1682. Don't believe me? Look it up. Virginia Colonial Act of 1682. That's how you cite a source. To the dummy that I know is still watching. See how I've cited like a dozen sources and we ain't even done with the chapter yet. An estate ledger from 1694 revealed how quickly the system erased identity. Quote, "Several Indians taken in war who might pass for Negroes and are so accounted by the planters." End quote. If an indigenous person could pass for a Negro, planters declared them one. That declaration became legal fact, and once the paperwork said Negro, the person's children inherited that identity and their grandchildren after them. An entire bloodline could disappear from the indigenous world in a single generation. Missionaries working in the region documented their dismay at English misclassification, but their own records often reinforced it. One missionary wrote in the 1680s, quote, "The English call them Negro, though they be Indians, for they judge only by the complexion," end quote. Here is the raw machinery of racialization in its earliest form, the belief that skin tone overrides all other truths, even in the face of clear indigenous ancestry. Missionaries created their own categories: good Indians, wild Indians, Negro Indians, intending to describe religious or cultural differences. But later governments and later historians treated these categories as biological classifications. In this way, missionary documents fused with colonial administrative records, creating a racial regime where indigeneity dissolved under the pressure of European color language. By the end of the century, colonial law sealed the transformation. Legislators across the Southeast began passing statutes that grouped dark-skinned indigenous people with Africans into a single racial category. Slave codes no longer distinguish between African captives and native captives. Marriage laws and tax laws treated darker-skinned indigenous people as non-Indian. Property laws declared that Negroes cannot inherit or hold land, and dark-skinned natives fell under those laws automatically. This is the moment when the word Indian began to shrink on paper. Suddenly, dark-skinned Creeks were listed as Negroes. Dark-skinned Yamasee became Negro Indians. Dark-skinned Wale families became mulatto. Dark-skinned Appalachian people became colored. Not because their ancestry changed, but because the paperwork did. By the turn of the 18th century, the transformation was complete. Tens of thousands of indigenous people remained in the Southeast, living in the same towns, speaking the same languages, practicing the same rituals, but they no longer appeared as indigenous in the colonial record. They had been reclassified out of existence. The 1600s matter because they introduced the structural logic that every future American racial policy would inherit. Race as status, not ancestry. Appearance over community. Paper identity over lived identity. By 1700, the stage was set for the Yamasee War, the massive indigenous uprising that would shake the colonies to their core. But instead of correcting the system, the English doubled down. And the racial machinery they built would survive into the United States, into Reconstruction, into Jim Crow, into the Dawes Rule, and even into the 21st century. The century of conversion was complete. The century of reclassification was about to begin. And that is the end of chapter 2. And if there's anybody just now tuning in, if you want to get a copy of my new book, Reclassified, 5 Centuries of Paper Genocide, How Race Was Used to Erase Native Black Americans 1492 to 2025, well, all you got to do is go to my website, nativeblackancestry.com. This is what the homepage looks like. Just click on the tab that says Reclassified New Book, and you can go ahead and get some more information on the book and get your copy. But before we wrap up this broadcast, because Lord knows I got a flight to catch in a minute, let's see what the audience is talking about. Let's see if anybody wants to call in with some final questions, or if we just going to wrap it up right there. And of course, like any good book, at the end of my book, I've got an appendix with the academic works, the primary archival sources, every quote that I list. I've got academic sources cited. We're talking probate records. We're talking Indian agents, missionaries, registrar office memorandums. We got so many sources. And really, I wanted to make this as a tool in your arsenal. So the next time some dumb motherfucker tries to dictate heritage to you, you can just kill him with facts and receipts. No need to go back and forth. Oh, boy called in earlier. He cited some source talking about 0.0001% of our mtDNA is similar to Africa. Meanwhile, I'm taking it back through history, through genealogy, to the 1400s, the 1500s, the 1600s. And this entire book is a chronological order of 5 centuries of racial reclassification. Here's the table of contents. First chapter is the crime you were never meant to see. Then we get into 1492 to 1600, the first misclassification. 1600 to 1700 is what I just read, the Indian slave trade era. The next chapter is 1700 to 1800, the age of colonial record keepers. 1800 to 1880, removal, reclassification, and federal control. 1880 to 1910, the Green Peach War and the Dawes Era. 1910 to 1950, the eugenics and racial integrity regime. 1950 to modern day, academia and the new paper genocide. And then we get into restoring what was taken. I give a dedication, some acknowledgments. We got a little bit about me, the author, and all that good stuff. Venus is asking if they can come up. Yeah, if you make it brief, if you make it fast. I got a flight to catch, so just hurry up and request to join ASAP, and we'll get you up here. You'll be our last caller. Realist Renee says, hey, Mike, this statement was part of my ChatGPT inquiry about my mtDNA results. Quote, mtDNA alone cannot label a line native. It contributes context, not tribal affiliation. Yeah, I feel you, Renee. That's why it's interesting that the Pan-Goofy tried to tell us that mtDNA means we're African, when clearly it cannot tell you tribal affiliation nor ancestry in that matter. Liz says, you muted my friend. I don't know what you're talking about. Everybody else can hear me. Venus, go ahead and let us know where you're calling in from and what's on your mind.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so just to be brief, basically, in my family, of course, we have enslaved people. And I always thought it was interesting that one of my ancestors, she was enslaved, but she would be called to the forest, right? Like, this is more spiritual than anything. I don't know if you believe in this, but they literally would beat her, right? Over and over again. But something would keep calling her to the forest, like something from the land. And I just always thought it was weird because I'm like, well, if we're African, right? We're supposed to be from Africa. What would really connect us to this land? Like, why did she have such a strong calling to this land, to not, like, to the point to where she would not want to be, like, work as a slave? Like, they would beat her over and over again, and she would always leave and just be outside amongst the trees, amongst nature and everything. And I just thought that was so interesting. And so I think that what you're doing it's really eye-opening. It's really eye-opening in a good way. So thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I thank you for sharing your story. It's true that there's so much within our culture and our customs that speak to our indigenous ancestry, but we've just been reclassified and mislabeled for 5 centuries and counting, to where we don't realize that, you know, we didn't just make this culture out of nowhere. This is a continuity of what our ancestors created thousands of years ago. But yeah, go ahead and leave us with some closing remarks before I wrap up the broadcast. I appreciate you calling in. Oh, and actually,
Yes.
real quick, before you get out of here, so also on my website, nativeblackancestry.com, I've got a digital archive that folks can access for like $15. Over 600 documents, family photos, newspaper clippings, Black Indian obituaries, essays, ex-Indigenous slave interviews, fugitive Indian slave ads. The list goes on and on. But when you were talking about being called to the land and stuff, something that I was inspired to share with you is a excerpt from Frederick Douglass's newspaper. During this time that he wrote this in 1852, there was a lot of different colonial schemes where people were trying to convince us to, quote unquote, go back to Africa. And none of our ancestors was really trying to go. I wonder why. If that was really our motherland, we would be desperately trying to get back to the motherland. Right, guys? But check this out. I got this newspaper clipping somewhere in here. Got so many receipts. Good Lord. Sometimes I forget how many receipts I have in the vault. Let me see. And you guys can download this stuff to your phone, to your computer, share it on social media, all that good stuff. You know what? I think I passed it. Yeah, I definitely passed it. Hold on. I'm looking for an 1852 newspaper clipping. I forget if Frederick Douglass's paper was called the North Star or something. I think it was maybe called the North Star.
Yeah, it was the North Star.
North Star, yeah. So it's that paper. All right, we're getting warm. We're getting warm. It's tiny little paper. Oh, and I promise, guys, it's going to be so worth the wait, because you don't understand. Our ancestors were standing on business back then. Our ancestors was not playing around with no go to Africa bullshit, okay? And you know what? You know what I'm gonna do? Just because once again I passed it somehow. I've got it pulled up in another file here that is a much smaller database. So I can just pull it up quicker. Here it is. North Star Frederick Douglass, January 22nd, 1852. He says, and I quote, "There is no sentiment more universally entertained nor more firmly held by the free colored people of the United States than that this is their own, their native land, and that here, for good or for evil, their destiny is to be wrought out. Identified with the entire history of the American people, going back more than 200 years, this sentiment is natural and praiseworthy. There is not now, there never has been, and we think there never will be any general desire on the part of our people to immigrate from this land to any other, and least of all to the wilds of Africa."
Yes.
1852, our ancestors was talking like that. Come on. Come on. Motherfuckers, Europeans was at the harbor with a boat and a free ticket for us saying, hey, just hop on the boat. Just go back to Africa. And we, no, I'm cool. We know where we're from.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out to Moody. Moody says, never seen that before. Yeah, for like $15, you can access the digital archive on my website. Hundreds of documents. I mean, I got so many receipts. Check this out. Just to show you guys how nobody can fuck with me with the receipts. Check this out. I got ex-Indian slave interviews. We gonna just read the front page of Ellen Cregan. No, actually not Ellen Cregan. Spence Johnson. This one is sad, y'all. I be tearing up reading this one sometimes. Check this out. It uses the N word with a hard R, so I'm gonna substitute that by saying "gur." So if I start growling, you know what I'm saying, right? The Gur Stealers done stole me and my mammy out the Choctaw Nation up into Indian Territory when I was about 3 years old. Brother Knox, sis Hannah, and my mammy and her two stepchillin was down on the river washing. The Gur Stealers drive up in a big carriage, and mommy just thought nothing because the fort was near there and people on the road was stopping to water their horses and rest a while in the shade. By and by, a man comes... By and by, a man coaxes the two biggest children in the carriage and give them some kind of candy. Other children see this and go too. Two other men was walking around smoking and getting closer and closer to mammy all the time. When he can, the man in the carriage got the two big stepchildren in with them, and me and my sis climbed in too to see how come. Then the man holler, "Get that old one and let's get from here." With that, the two big men grabbed mommy and she fought and she screeched and she bit and she cried. But they hit her on the head with something and drug her in and throwed her on the floor. The big children began to fight for mommy, but one of the men hit him hard and off they drove under the whip. This was near a place called Baggy Depot. They went down the Red River, down the river and on down in Louisiana to Shreveport. And there's multiple pages of this. I'm just reading the front page, okay? We got Black Indians being kidnapped from Indian Territory by slave traders and sent to Shreveport, Louisiana to be sold to plantations.
And that's where my family's from. Very interesting. But I'll just leave it at this. We are spiritually connected to this land. There's a lot that I can say for it and the reasonings why I have it, but I'm a spiritual person, and I just, over time, have come to this realization that Black people are indigenous everywhere, like who they consider Black. We're indigenous to every land, and that would make sense. So, yeah.
No, wait, hold on. I have to correct you. Mainstream academics want us to believe that there were Blacks indigenous to Asia and Africa and Europe and Australia, but when it comes to America was just empty until some Asians walked across the Bering Strait. Right? Come on. It gets silly sometimes if you just think about it. It gets real silly. But yeah, I got to go catch a flight. I appreciate you for calling in, and don't hesitate to call in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Bye.
And shout out to Amor. Amor said, go catch your plane, sir. Yeah, no, I got to go catch it in a couple hours. That gives me just enough time to do some packing, do some smoking. But yeah, guys, it's been real. Again, if anybody wants to access my new book, you can do so on my website, nativeblackancestry.com. The book is Reclassified: 5 Centuries of Paper Genocide, How Race Was Used to Erase Native Black Americans, 1492 to 2025. And guys, I wanted to get this information out to my people as soon as possible. So right now I release it as an ebook. Middle of next year, I'm going to expand it and release it as a physical book, paperback and hardcover copy that you can buy on Amazon and all major retailers. But I just wanted to get this info in your hands as soon as possible. So the next time you're on social media, the next time you got some coworker trying to debate you on your ancestry, well, you'll have dozens and dozens of quotes directly from the people who did the reclassifying. Come on. We're using their own words against them. We're not using Native Black American scholars in 2025. No, we're using colonial records from the 1600s. We're using missionary reports from the 1700s. We're using Indian agents of the federal government in the 1800s. Guys, we use their own words against them. That's how you do it. I appreciate everybody wishing me a safe flight. Shout out to all the haters. I know you're mad. I know you're so mad. So upset. So upset. You guys have proof that you're indigenous to this land, and no. I mean, just imagine how much more upset you'll be when you realize that I'm actually a member of a federally recognized tribe and I descend from famous Black Creeks written about in several books. Yeah, it's in me, it's not on me, but you're gonna learn the hard way. Thank you to everybody tuning in, and I will see y'all later on. Till next time, it's been real. Peace.
They don't want you to remember this. You not no slave, you indigenous. Fuck how they painted them Indians. You went to war with the French and the British men. Quite frankly, you was kings, Merovingians. They took the women and men, made them prisoners, raised up the children to worship their images, set up a lab to the genes and they mixed them. And this shit get way deeper than your pigment.